This part of our class talks about ideologies that are impacting the models of disability that we discussed before. In every historical period, disability was constructed differently. Remember killing babies in ancient Roman Greece, the asylums in Middle Ages, the charity in 18th and 19th centuries, capitalism and its competitiveness and emphasis on individual labor and insurance, the normalcy and IQ movements of 20th century, or the relativism and post-structuralism of our 21st century. Uh, one of the one of the major ideologies is eugenics. Eugenics is a movement in practice of selective breeding to improve species, later applied to humans, that developed in the 19th century. It was later abused by racism and Nazism in the 20th century, and it led to genetic-based killing, sterilization of defected women and men, horrific treatment. Nazi eugenics developed during the Second World War. Nazis killed millions of people with disabilities, calling them disfigured, abnormal, defective, in order to maintain pure race. The next slide shows a picture of eugenics. It is a big tree with lots of roots that all lead into this big tree that is titled eugenics. And it says that eugenics is the self-direction of human evolution. Like a tree, eugenics draws its materials from many sources and organizes them into an harmonious entity. And the sources are the roots, and there are sources such as anatomy, biology, psychology, mental testing, history, geology, archaeology, statistics, law, politics, biography, genealogy, sociology, religion, psychiatry, surgery, medicine, and others. Another ideology that developed in our times is institutionalization. That is a way to confine people to usually large buildings with supervision and limited rights, such as prisons, mental health institutions, or psychiatric wards. It is committing by a society of an individual to a particular institution, such as mental institution. The term institutionalization is therefore sometimes used as a term to describe both the treatment of and damage caused to vulnerable human beings by the oppressive or corrupt application of inflexible systems of social, medical, or legal controls. Until the late 60s, people with mental disabilities lived in large institutions in the USA, until a law case of Willowbrook where 5,000 people lived with no clothes, nothing to do, in their own excrement and urine, with screaming and banging their heads in boredom, and that was the United States in the 60s. Great resource on institutionalization is Irving Goffman's book, Asylums. Another ideology that has been impacted how we think about disabilities is genetic testing and abortion. Genetic testing is a way to discover whether a fetus may be born with some kinds of disability, such as deafness, heart disease, Down syndrome, and so on. Many families decide to abort the fetus in order to have a healthy baby. But, for example, deaf parents say, it does not matter that my baby is deaf. The most important thing is that he or she is healthy. Most parents of children with disabilities love their children and would not change their lives, in spite of some disabilities. Civil, human, and disability rights is another ideology. Disability rights movement started in Berkeley, California in the early 60s, when people in wheelchairs requested the same access to places as others, especially to public transportation, public buildings, and so on. The goal is to secure equal opportunities and equal rights for all people with disabilities. Welfare state. Welfare state is a model in which the state assumes primary responsibility for the welfare of its citizens. This responsibility, in theory, ought to be comprehensive because all aspects of welfare are considered and universally applied to citizens as a right. Welfare state can also mean the creation of a social safety net of minimum standards of varying forms of welfare. In terms of disability, people with disabilities are often regarded as dependent on the state, its benefits, or even as a social burden. Although some people do not like to be called disabled, they have to identify as disabled to reach for social benefits. Normalcy is now more normal, quote unquote, normal than normality to describe the way things usually are or the way we think they ought to be. When referring to disability, it means that the general non-disabled society wants to make people with disabilities the way it is, quote, normal, end quote, general, or the most common. But what is normal, and who is abnormal? Capitalism and individualism. are ideologies based on the premises of laissez-faire, where private individuals are free to exchange goods or services without intervention from the state. It emphasizes labor and individuality. For people with disabilities who cannot often participate in the labor market due to their bodily limitations or discrimination from others, capitalism brings in oppression. Oliver says in 1996 in his book that the economy, through both the operation of the labor market and organization of social work, plays a key role in producing disability and structures of capitalism, which themselves produce racism, sexism, homophobia, ageism, or ableism. Now, I would like you to think of all these ideologies and how they influence our thinking about disabilities and also the disability models that we had in the first PowerPoint. And I want you to go to Blackboard and write your reading discussions and discuss all these ideologies and models. And I'm really looking forward to a fruitful and thoughtful discussion on Blackboard. And I wish you to have a good weekend.